everyone, it's Jessica. Thank you so much for coming by my channel today. So for today's layout, I'm going to scrapbook these 5 photos of my kids from last winter, and I'm really excited to use it with the new Seas and Greetings paper collection from Close to My Heart. I love all of the fun colors in here, and it's really cool because some of the papers have a winter theme to them, as you can see on this really pretty snowflake paper, and some of the papers are just basic patterns that work along with the rest of the papers in the collection. And then a couple of the papers, if you flip them over, they actually have a beach theme to them rather than a snow theme. So depending on where you live and your climate, it just kind of, however you want to use this paper pack. So I'm obviously going for the winter one because my kids are outside playing in the snow. All right, I'm going to work off of a pattern here from one of my older Make It From Your Heart volume pattern books. And I am using just the right-hand side to this double page layout. So I did print my photos at 2x2 on my at-home photo printer. I thought with that smaller size, I could get all 5 of them onto a single page. I do really love making single page layouts and cutting it down rather than 2 if I can and where I can to save some space in my scrapbooks. So I really liked printing them at that smaller size. So I've cut all of the papers according to the pattern in that book, and then I just went ahead and edge distress them with a foam tool and the coordinating ink colors just to prep everything. Now, a couple of my photos I did matte in white, the ones of my kids, and then the 2 photos that are going to go at the bottom of the page I left unmatted just because the strip of paper that they're going to sit on, if I had put a white mat behind them, I would have covered up way too much of that pattern paper, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and use that layout as a guide just to lay everything out here without gluing anything down at first and make sure that I like all of my paper choices. There were so many pretty ones in that collection, I just wasn't quite sure what exactly to use. But I think I like the way that these ones are looking. And I did also go a little bit rogue here because at the top of each of the pattern papers, there's what's called a zip strip. It's the branding strip, and it will tell you all of the Close to My Heart ink colors or paper colors that are used in that collection. So here you can see I'm checking that zip strip, and I have pulled in a paper or a color that's not in the collection. So this purple color here, this wisteria, I think I'm going to go with that rather than this pattern piece from the collection. It's not listed on the colors that are in these pattern papers, but I think it works really well, and I liked how it picked up the purple in my daughter's hat and coat. So yeah, went a little bit rogue there, but I think it's going to be okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and adhere my base page to my Versamat. I love working off of this, especially when I'm first putting all of my pattern papers down. It helps me to keep everything on straight. So I will just hook my T-square over to the side and then start getting some things adhered. So these are some photos from last winter where we had some snow and the kids were able to go out and build like a little snow tunnel fort. And we have 4 rabbits. They love to take the rabbits outside. The rabbits love playing in the snow, surprisingly. They just will crawl through those little snow tunnels that the kids have built. And they just seem to have, the time of their bunny lives. And so in this particular picture down here in the bottom corner, you can see our bunny Easter Bunny, and him kind of playing in the little snow fort that the kids had built. So I thought that was a lot of fun. And you can see I've got a couple of those snowmen and the cute little deer from the Seas and Greetings winter stamp set. I've already got them cut and colored because I was doing that for some of my Christmas cards, and these were some that I had left over. I originally thought that I was going to use them on this layout because, that stamp set goes with his paper collection. But then because I had Easter Bunny in the photos, I decided to switch over to a different stamp set, which is called If Snowflakes Were Kisses. So you'll see me kind of try to use those snowmen later, but then, like I said, I'm going to go in a different direction. All right, just doing a little bit of math here to figure out where my center point will be for this middle photo. And then again, using that T-square ruler and the Versamat to get this one set up, and then I can put the other ones to either side to make sure that everything is evenly spaced and centered. So here you can see I had them ready to go anyway, so I thought, well, let me try them out on this page. And even though the colors were right and they were really cute, like I said, I think I'm going to go for this one just because especially of that bunny. And we've got Easter Bunny in the photos. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm trying to decide what stamp set to use is I will pull the stamp right off the carrier sheet. That way I can hold up the printed version on the carrier sheet over top of where I think I might want to use it. I can get a better visual that way. And so after doing that, I decided, yep, I'm definitely going to use that cute little bunny. There is also a fun little saying in there that says, if snowflakes were kisses, I'd send you a blizzard. So I decided to stamp that in the open space down here between two of my photos. Now on the pattern that I am working from in that Make It From Your Heart book, it actually calls for more photos down here in this bottom strip, but 5 was all that I had, so that's why I stamped that little sentiment there. And then I did grab a little snowflake and kind of stamp around it, but later I regretted doing that because it was the only place I did it, but I don't think anyone will really notice. Okay, so I have gone ahead and stamped the cute little polar bear and the bunny on some white daisy cardstock, and I used some intense black ink so that I could do coloring with my tri-blend markers. And I'm just going to go around and add a little bit of coloring. I really love doing this. This is probably my favorite way of adding color to my stamps. It's so easy to blend them when you have all 3 shades of one color in a single marker. And I'll show you here in a quick second. I did color outside the lines just a little bit on my rabbit's hat. I feel like a little kid saying that. I colored outside of the lines. It's an easy fix if you have a white gel pen. You're going to see me grab it here in a second. You can go over your mistake with a white gel pen and it just acts as like a whiteout, like a really detailed whiteout. So here I'm just going to color on that little spot that I got too much marker color on the outside of my image, and you can't even tell. So that's just a little tip for you as a way to cover any mistakes. Now on the polar bear, I want to keep him white, but I want to add a little bit of shading. So I went around the inside edge of his face with the ice gray, the lightest end of the ice gray marker, and then I'm using a colorless blender just to kind of blend it out. So even though he stays as a white bear, it just kind of adds a little bit of shadow to him and gives him a little bit more dimension. So that's a trick that I like to use on any images that I want to stay white. I just add some shadowing to them. And there are the final versions. So I will pull out the coordinating thin cuts to these images, line them up, and stick some washi tape over top of them to keep them in place, and run them through my die cutting machine. So now I've got those pieces ready to go. I've also used the snowflakes thin cuts. Love these. They make such pretty snowflakes, detailed little snowflakes that I know I could not get my Cricut to cut out because they are so intricate and detailed. They're just beautiful. So I've cut a whole bunch of those, and I'm going to work on kind of scattering those around my page. One thing a trick that I have learned that I have really taken to heart and has made my scrapbooking so much easier is to think about a visual triangle for your embellishments. So as I'm kind of working on these clusters, I've got 3 points around my page that form a triangle. Okay, I want to add a little bit of glitter to my cute little animals here. So I pulled out my silver stickles, and I'm going to do the little ball pom-pom on the top of his hat, both animals' hats, and then the little balls at the bottom of the rabbit's hat. So stickles does take a little bit of time to dry, so don't get too anxious to move on. Ask me how I know. I have ruined many a project by sticking my finger in some wet stickles. Okay, I'm pulling out here my slim alphabet thin cuts and just measuring them to see, how tall they are so I can cut my paper accordingly. So I'm going to cut myself a couple of 2 1/4 inch strips of sapphire cardstock, and I'm going to cut 4 to be exact. Because what I'm going to do here is for my title, I wanted to say Winter Wonderland, and I'm going to cut out the word Wonderland from these die cuts. So to save myself a little bit of gluing, I'm going to glue 2 pieces of cardstock together and then cut out my word on the 2 pieces that are glued together. I'm going to repeat that process twice So that way I can just glue all of those together and have 4 pieces of cardstock per letter. I find that that is a really good way to add some dimension without adding a lot of bulk to your layout, because these letters you'll see when they are cut out, they really are quite slim and delicate, and it just helps to give them a little bit more presence on the page. And rather than having to individually glue 4 stacks of cardstock for each letter, just having my 2 pieces of paper already stuck together cuts that whole process in half. So I don't know where I figured that out, if it just kind of occurred to me or if I saw someone do it and then later subconsciously remembered it, but it has really been one of my favorite tricks these last couple of months. So I highly recommend doing that. If you are comfortable sending at least 2 pieces of cardstock through your die cutting machine, this is just a really great way to add some extra dimension to your letters, or any die cuts really. So I'm going to take a strip of washi tape just to hold them all in place. And that way I know that they're going to cut exactly where I want them to on that paper. And then as I peel them off, I'm going to keep them stuck to that washi tape so that once I get all of those letters poked out of there, I can just stick that whole thing right back onto my other piece of paper. So like this, and then run it through again. And then I will have 2 sets of letters that I glue together to form 4 stacked total. I hope that that makes sense. And there's enough space there on the end of each of those so that I can do my extra N and D. So to glue them together, I do really like using the Barely Art glue here. It's got a really fine applicator tip. And I just usually tend to grab these letters with my tweezers to kind of help hold them up in the air while I'm adding little bits of glue to the back of that. And then I will stick the letters together. That liquid glue, not only is it just a fine tip, but it gives you a second to wiggle them onto place. And then I usually set them underneath something to dry. So that way they are definitely stuck together. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm going to pull out that stamp set. It does have a really pretty Wonderland on it, a scripted one, but I'm just going to use the word winter. And I'm not sure if I'm going to stamp it like to the side this way, or maybe on like a little pennant banner or something. I decide to go turning it to the side next to where my Wonderland is. I'm just going to do it that way. So before I do that, I want to make sure, and before I glue any of my letters down, I want to make sure that everything is going to fit okay. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time kind of fussing again with the placement of all of my clusters. I'm going to actually stack a couple of these snowflakes up together. And then that cluster that I have up at the top with the polar bear, it was just getting kind of lost. It needed something to sit on. So I just cut a little bracket die cut piece that I had in half, and I'm going to set that behind the polar bear and his snowflake. So yep, I think that's going to work. I'm going to go ahead and pull my glue back out again, and off camera adhere most of this back down so you don't have to watch me doing it. I did want to show you a little trick here though, that as I was putting my letters down, even though that tip has such a fine applicator tip to it, sometimes it does have a little bit of glue that I get too much glue and it oozes out a little bit. So I'm just using my, I think it's called a crafting tool, honestly. I'm not exactly sure what the name of it is. Just a little tool. And I just kind of scrape alongside of the letters here to get off that excess adhesive. And that way it's not sticky on my page. And again, Versamat and T-square ruler to the rescue to make sure that my title goes on straight. So again, just kind of picking up any of that excess glue with that pointed tip, and I'll set those letters, my block on top of those letters to make sure that they adhere down tight to the page. Now on my snowflakes, they have a lot of tiny little lines on the back. I'm not gluing all of that. So I really just put a little bit of glue in the center of each of my snowflakes, and that ended up working out perfectly because the tips of all the snowflakes are kind of poking up just a little bit, and again, add a nice little bit of dimension there. Plus I'm going to stack some of them together, and I really love the look of that. So This would be fun to do with some glitter paper and to kind of stack some white cardstock and then some of them in white glitter paper. I think that that would make a really pretty snowflake cluster. So next time I think I'm going to have to do that. All right, so those are done. And then there were a couple of stars that poke out from the center of the smallest snowflake on this die cut set. And I just put a couple of extra ones of those that I had sitting on my desk and put them around the clusters as well. So I'm almost done at this point. I did put some foam tape behind both of my animals, some regular foam tape, and I will set that right over top of that one bottom square down there and the snowflake. And we're going to let that bunny be our little Easter bunny. He's so cute. Really love him. All right, I think at this point I am almost done. And then as I was kind of looking at it, I thought, that layout, the pattern did call for the photo mats to be bigger than the photos, but it just kind of felt like some empty blank space above each of my kids' heads. So I went searching through my stamp sets, and this is actually the retired November stamp of the month, the Christmas Snowflake Mandalas. And there's this fun little border stamp on there. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp it over top, and fingers crossed that I don't screw up at my layout at this point because I'm basically done, but I think it turned out. Love the way those snowflakes stick up. And there you can see the dimension on those letters with having 4 pieces of cardstock stacked together. Cute little bunny. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming by today to watch as I started to play with the Seas and Greetings paper collection and stamp set. I'm really loving it. I think I'm going to start making a couple more Christmas cards with this paper set just because it's so pretty and I really love all of the fun colors in there. But it's not Christmassy at all. It is just kind of winter themed, or like I said, if you flip it over, beach themed. So whatever works for you. All right, guys, I hope you're having a great day. I will link everything that I use that's available down below. Have a great day. Happy crafting. Bye.